The Senate will come back to order. The Senate will come back to order. The chair recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate table HB 555.
Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
House Bill 555 by Representative Carpenter, the fourth and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 4 of Title 17 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to warrants for arrest, so as to add public child welfare case manager to the people for whom arrest warrants may be issued only by certain judicial officers. That completes the order.
The majority leader has moved that the Senate place on the table House Bill 555. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and it is placed on the table. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 1035?
House Bill 1035 by Senator Martin of the 49th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 8 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to sales and use taxes so as to repeal sunset provisions regarding certain tax exemptions and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance recommends this bill be passed by substitute. Senator Hofstetler, the 52nd District Chair. The Senate Finance Committee offers the following.
Chair recognizes the majority leader for a motion.
Thank you.
The majority leader has moved that the Senate place on the table House Bill 1035. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and House Bill 1035 is placed on the table. Chair recognizes the senator from the 12th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate adopt the Conference Committee report on SB 68.
Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
The committees of conference on Senate Bill 68 recommend that both the Senate and the House of Representatives recede from their positions and that the attached committees of conference substitute to Senate Bill 68 be adopted. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to education so as to strengthen provisions relating to the financial management of local school systems and for other purposes. That completes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 12th to speak to her motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 68, Sections 1.1 through Sections 1.13 is the original Senate Bill 68 that passed the Senate last year, 53-1, that strengthens financial management provisions for local school boards. Section 2.1 through 2.10 are House Bill 32 that moves the chief turnaround officer from reporting to the State Board of Education to the Department of Education. This has already happened in practice and is also reflected in the budget. One section of this bill was removed that created a pilot program that was never funded in the budget. Section 3.1 is the identical language to HB 86 on teacher evaluations that we passed this morning from the Senator of the 53rd. Section 4.1 is HB 464. Representatives Hatchett this bill simply requires local Board of Educations to make a public comment period available at each of their meetings. Mr. President, if there are no questions, I yield the well.
You have no questions, Senator.
Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the motion? The chair sees none. The senator from the 12th has moved that the Senate adopt the conference committee report on Senate Bill 68. All those in favor vote yea, opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? All senators voted. If you're in the chamber, there's a couple of y'all that are in here that have not voted yet. Just check your machines. All members vote. We got two more coming, okay? All members, still got two more. Did they trip in the hallway? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the motion, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0. The motion has prevailed, and the Senate has adopted the Conference Committee report on Senate Bill 68. Chair recognizes the senator from the 54th. Oh. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption to House Bill 765?
House Bill 765 by Representative Scoggins of the 14th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 15 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to courts so as to provide for an increase in the minimum compensation for chief magistrates. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Rules recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Senator Mullis of the 53rd District Chair. The Senate Committee on Rules offers the following substitute to House Bill 765, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 15 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to courts so as to provide for an increase in the minimum compensation for chief magistrates, to provide for a calculation of future increases in the minimum compensation for chief magistrates, and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senator Payne in the 54th District offers Amendment 1 to the committee substitute to House Bill 765 by on line 160, change the date from January 1, 2021 to January 1, 2022. Senator Payne of the 54th and Mullis of the 53rd offer Amendment 2 to the committee substitute to House Bill 765 by on line 20, changing the effective date from January 1, 2021 to January 2022. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 54th to speak to the bill and the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President.
We're close. Just give us your attention as we finish the drill here. We've only got a few more measures today. Go ahead.
Colleagues, this bill I can bring back to you, House Bill 765. This bill conforms with Senate Bill 171, which we passed last year, the legislature passed last year, and it does the exact same thing that Senate Bill 171 provided, that we did provide for probate judges, clerks, sheriffs, and tax commissioners. The chart on your desk, and I've passed out, everyone has a chart on your desk, and if you'll please look at that. The first column is the population ranges that determines current base pay. The second column is the base salary for each population range. The third column is what the actual salary is, because we have had several COLAs since that base was established. And the fourth column shows the salaries with the 5% increase. This will be the first time that we've increased the salaries for magistrate court judges in 13 years in our state. This bill also provides for a 5% increase in the supplement provided to the probate judges who also serve as magistrate judges who weren't included in SB 171. This bill goes into effect on January of 2022. The amendments are simply to show that change in the bill, moving it further out for time for local communities to be prepared to. So we're looking at a very minimal increase of their salary overall, and that gives those local communities time to account for that. Mr. President, with those questions, I will yield the will.
You have no questions.
I ask for your favorable support. Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak for the bill or the amendment? The chair sees none. As a reminder, when the bill was tabled yesterday, when House Bill 765 was tabled, amendment number 1 was already adopted. So now we're going to take up amendment number 2. Amendment number 2. The question is on the adoption of amendment number 2 by the senator from the 54th. Is there objection to adoption of the amendment? Chair hears none, and amendment number 2 is adopted. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute as amended. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute as amended? Chair hears none. The committee substitute as amended is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 34, the nays are 16. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. For what purposes the pro tem rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. President.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that our county commissioners are going to be just as mad at me this year as they were last year?
Is that just limited to your county commissioners?
Well, it might be more than that, but at least we're consistent.
Yes, sir. Way to honor your promises. For what purpose does the senator from the 52nd rise?
Mr. President, I would move that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 321.
Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
This is agreeing to the House sub, so the caption, and there's a House sub.
Okey-dokey. Senate Bill 321 by Senator Huffstetler of the 52nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 34 of Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to physicians, assistants, and others so as to revise provisions relating to the number of physicians, assistants, and advanced practice registered nurses a physician can authorize and supervise at any one time and for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 321. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 34 of Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to physicians, assistants, and others so as to authorize the delegation by a physician to an advanced practice registered nurse to order radiographic imaging tests in non-life-threatening situations and for other purposes. That completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 52nd to speak to his motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a bill I'm extremely proud of. There's been a lot of work gone into this. There was a study committee done over the off session, and the House joined us. Even though we were separate committees, we met together, and Dr. Newton from the House was part of it. Looking at our PAs and our APRNs, we always have, this group has this group has that, back and forth. We said we want to make things consistent between everybody. And I think what this bill has done is done that. Instead of those two groups against each other, there's actually been a marriage of them, where the PAs and the APRNs are going to be treated essentially the same in our facilities. This is really helpful for hospitals. Some groups have 400 and something PAs and APRNs that do the same job, get the same pay, but yet they've got these two sets of rules. They've got two different ratios, and all that has been taken care of. I do want to say that we said at the beginning that the one group this doesn't apply to is anesthesia, which, as you know, is my specialty, that the CRNAs, the AAs, and the anesthesiologists, the three that are in there, that this has no effect on them. Probably each group has something they would like, but they're completely left out of this. And I also want to add that I love it when one of my patients tells me I didn't feel a thing, but I really hate it when my wife tells me the same thing. So, anyway, let me get back to, I digress there. So the PAs had a different ratio than the nurses, 1 to 4, 1 to 2, all that's been evened out. They've got some places that the PAs had some places they couldn't practice if the doctor didn't regularly go there. Now the language actually I think said they could, but it was confusing, and that's been clarified. The one thing the nurses have wanted was to be able to order radiologic imaging. The PAs could already do it in this state. The nurses could do it in 49 states. This will allow it to be done. And I do want to add that the physician has a protocol with those nurses. They are under his supervision, and he's the one that decides this, whether to give them that. And then the further thing would be that the insurance company has to approve it. And I've been one of those recently where a physician ordered it for me, and that can be a little bit of a problem in itself to get it approved, and took a couple of tries for something. So again, it makes everything equal between the specialties. I'm trying to have them not one-up each other, but bring them all together in one group, and the hospital certainly appreciate that. And if there's no questions, I'll yield the well and ask for your favorable consideration.
You have a question. The chair recognizes the senator from the 48th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the chairman yield?
I yield.
So my understanding is that the House has expanded how many physician assistants a doctor can supervise, adds more nurses in supervisory roles. Is that correct?
The nurses already had a 1-to-4 ratio. This makes it 1-to-4 for the PAs who had a 1-to-2 ratio. So it evens that ratio up. But there are some specialties that have exceptions on that ratio, different clinics and stuff. And yes, there's no expansion for the nurses in that area.
No expansion, but expansion for physician assistants.
For physician assistants.
Are all these physician assistants and nurses under the supervision of doctors?
They are under the doctor's protocol, every single one of them in the state of Georgia. He sets what they can and can't do.
And do you further yield?
I yield.
Do we have a mechanism by which to make sure that this supervision is actually happening?
We've got different mechanisms in there. We've got the composite medical board, the nursing board, and protocol agreements are done and have to be on file with all these facilities saying who supervises them, what they're doing, and what their scope of practice is. There may be people, nurses and PAs, that don't have some of this authority because their physician maybe doesn't want to give it to them. But it's up to him to make that decision.
And do you further yield?
I yield.
Is there some kind of check to make sure this is happening? And I'm asking these questions because I've actually had cases, fraud cases, where the supervision is not happening. And my concern is, particularly in rural Georgia, that there will be unsupervised medical care for those who already have substandard medical care.
Well, there will be, there are people in rural Georgia, and I think this helps people in rural Georgia, where there's places where it's not economical for a doctor to be there, but a nurse under his practice, under his protocol, can work in those areas and can do, I've had some people have said 85% of what the physician does they can do in seeing patients. So this is going to increase access in rural Georgia where a doctor simply can't go there because it's not economical.
May I clarify?
Mm-hmm.
So we have more nurses practicing, but not necessarily more doctor access in rural Georgia, is what you were just telling me.
We have, yes, we will have more access from mid-level providers. We're doing a lot of stuff, residency, to try to increase our physicians in the state. We're trying to increase all our health care to provide access in Georgia. I think this would be great for rural Georgia where there is no access in some cases.
Thank you, sir.
You have no more questions.
Thank you. I ask for your favorable consideration.
Does any of the senator wish to speak for or against the motion? The chair sees none. The senator from the 52nd has asked the Senate to agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 321. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please lock the machine. On the passage of the motion, the yeas are 46, the nays are 5, and the Senate has agreed to the House substitute to Senate Bill 321. For what purpose does the minority leader rise?
Parliamentary inquiry in preference to a motion, Mr. President.
State your inquiry, and then we'll anticipate your motion.
Thank you. As the President knows, I was going to make a motion to take off 661 from the table and move it back on the table, but best that that be done in two different motions. But for parliamentary purposes, it's not true that to be alive on the 40th day, it's got to be a table on the 39th day. So
Yes.
at the proper time, I make that motion.
The chair confirms that. This is the proper time to make those motions.
I move unanimous consent to take 661 off the table.
Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
House Bill 661 by Representatives Marin of the 96th and others, a bill to be entitled, an act to amend an act creating the new charter for the city of Norcross, Georgia.
The minority leader has asked for unanimous consent for House Bill 661 to be taken off the table. Is there objection? Where you been hiding? Is there objection? The chair hears none, and House Bill 661 is taken from the table.
Mr.
The chair
President,
recognizes the minority leader.
I would like to move House Bill 661 be placed on the table. Unanimous consent.
Minority leader has asked for unanimous consent that House Bill 661 be placed back on the table. Is there objection? Is there objection? There's no objection. And House Bill 661 is placed back on the table and available for day 40. The chair recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. With permission of the majority whip, I move that the Senate table HB 664.
Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
House Bill 664 by Representative Flemings of the 121st and others, bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 23 of Title 47 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to the Georgia Judicial Retirement System so as to require membership in the system for certain persons employed in certain full-time positions requiring admission to the State Bar of Georgia as a condition of employment and for other purposes.
The majority leader has moved that House Bill 664 be placed on the table. Is there objection? The chair hears none. And House Bill 664 is placed on the table and available for day 40. Well, I guess. Chair recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning on 26 June 2020.
Mr. Secretary, do you have any announcements for us?
There are no announcements.
Do any senators have any announcements? And I have no announcements. Oh, Senator Heath, Senator from the 31st, has an announcement.
In honor of our former Ag Chairman, I hereby declare tomorrow John Bullock Day.
Does that include the Lieutenant Governor? Okay. All right, the majority leader has moved that the Senate stand adjourned until Friday, June 26, 2020 at 10 a.m. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes obviously have it, and the Senate stands adjourned.